Hi, and welcome to the third in our series of videos looking at Coach Site Team Selector. I'm Andy Davison, and I'll be taking you through these steps. In the previous two videos, we've registered an administrative user, we've created a club, a season, we created a tryout, and a series of teams for that tryout. In video 2, we signed up a couple of athletes to the tryout, and then between now and then I've also built in or loaded up a number of staff. I've created the additional players, and I've also loaded up some data to indicate that's indicative of running a selection process, just so that you can see what it's like when we're live in the process. So from this home screen here, or dashboard, we can see that we're ready to run the trial. We've got all the information that needed to be entered. We've got 10 registered athletes. That's good. Obviously, we'd like to see some more, but for this demonstration, there's just 10. And we've got 5 staff that are defined. And remember, we defined 3 sessions for the tryout, but there's only 2 here because one of them has happened in the past. So just before we do start collecting data, there's one more really useful little screen, and that's the participant list. And this is available to the administrator or to staff members, although staff members won't see the last 2 columns, so that if an athlete comes up to you during the session and says, I don't know my number, you can get that quite easily here. You can sort using their first name, or you can sort using their last name. So Victoria, for example, here is number 10. I can also use this to identify athletes if I need to, if I've forgotten their name or something like that. This is one of those places where having the athlete's image loaded is really, really useful. But let's get on to collecting data. This is the screen you're going to see and interact with a lot during your selection sessions. And there are a couple of key things I want to show you. The first one is that this screen is live. Every minute, the data on the screen that's presented will update to refresh with all of the other data that's being collected from your staff, which is going back to the cloud in real time. So if we want to force an update, we can click on this refresh button, and it will load the information live from the cloud that's been collected by staff around the venue. Below that, there's an indicator to show you the currently selected player, which in this instance is number 1, Stacey Pullman. And if I need to get a reminder from a photo, I can hover over that box, or I can click on it if I'm on a tablet, and it'll pop up the photo that's available. Now, you'll notice in this instance it's saying that there's no image available, and that could be because the player hasn't uploaded one, or because they're a junior player and their parent hasn't consented to the use of their image. If I was to flick over to this player here, Jasmine, you will find Jasmine has a photo when I hover over her. Let's go back to Stacey, and we'll go into this section here, which is the selector box. Now, this is where I tap on these buttons to pull up each of the individual players. The currently selected one has rounded corners, and they all have different colors. And the colors tell us what state of completion that player's data is up to. Red means there's not a lot of data. Green means it's relatively complete. So if we have a look at player 1, for example, it's saying it's green, and you will see, I'll explain in a second, that everybody has collected some data on this particular player. If we go to player 4, we can see that nobody's collected any data on this player. And this is probably the most important part of the entire system, is being able to see visually and in real time which players you should be focusing your attention on during the selection trials. It's really easy to spend your time focusing on those players that are quite good or that require a lot of attention. This tool is predominantly there to help you make sure you're getting good objective information about all of the athletes that are attending your selection trials. These players 9 and 10 are kind of halfway between. Let's have a look at those. And yep, there's some data, but maybe not enough to make a good objective decision about their selection. Let's go to the bottom of the screen, and this is where those individual skills or criteria that you've established are indicated. And as a staff member, I can select what score I think that they should have. So for service, for example, looking at Victoria, I think, okay, she's actually a 4. Above that, I can see that the average across all the staff that have provided data for Victoria says that her scoring is around 2.2. And I can see through this closed ring that everybody has submitted a score for service. So not everyone, or most people actually don't agree with my assessment of 4 here. Over here for hitting, I can see that I've had only 2 out of 5 staff submit data. And in this case, there's no data on Victoria's passing abilities. So again, this is helping me understand where I should be paying attention to Victoria at this point in time. We might be doing a hitting drill with people passing the hit, but I'm, for whatever reason, I'm particularly focused on the hitters. And by seeing this, I know, hey, I need to pay attention to when Victoria is passing, seeing how she's coping with that and what's her movement like or whatever I might be looking for. Now, in the middle, you'll see these little boxes. This bottom screen is actually a set of tabs. And the tab we're looking at the moment is the Stats tab. I can click across to the Attributes tab and see these physical characteristics that we might want to capture. So standing jump for this player, I might capture at 35 centimeters, and the spike jump I might capture at 45 centimeters. Now remember that those attributes are visible to all staff members. I could be helping to measure at another jump station, and my data will become available to all other staff members just for attributes. When I'm looking at my stats, that's purely my assessment of this particular player. Moving on to the third tab, which is comments, I can make an identifying remark. So if the number wears off or anything like that, I might be able to say, okay, light blue playing top, just to remind me who this player is when it comes to the discussions around them. And I can also make some coaches' comments on this player. Good leader potential. Now, these comments don't become available to anyone but the staff member, and they're there to help prompt the discussion amongst coaches or selectors when it comes to picking who goes into which team. The last tab is our team assignment tab, and this is where I can make recommendations as to where I think players should be. In this case, I've said that Victoria should be in the Rubies team. I think based on what I'm seeing, she could be an outside hitter. Actually, probably an opposite hitter because she's got quite good setting ability, and we might just put setting down there. I'll set her down there as the second one. Now I can go across to other athletes, and Stacey, for example, we can see isn't currently in a team. Likewise, let's have a look. Here we go. Irene's not in a team. Looking at her skills here, I'm going to say maybe she's our reserve 1 player, and I think she's a bit of an all-rounder. And I can see at the bottom of the screen other players that I've recommended into the Rubies team. Okay, so Victoria, who we just had a look at a moment ago, I can see her skill averages. If I click on this graph, I can actually see in more detail those scores that have been given. Remembering these are the average scores across all staff members for this player. Okay, and that's team assignment. So once we get all of this information from all of our staff members across the 3 tryouts, it'll be time to come together and work out who are we going to make, who are we going to select into teams and make offers to. So let's say goodbye for now for this video, and we'll come back to video 4 where we'll talk about the selection and offer making process.